What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So I'm here today to talk about the Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 14, Episode 12, Trust Planning Issues. So be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, or let's jump around into it. And so the episode kicks off, and we are back in Atlanta, because remember in the last episode, towards the end, Marlo kicked everyone out of the rental home that they got up in Blue Ridge Mountain. And so we start with Shereé, and she's at the chateau with her son Cairo, and they're talking, and Shereé actually asks him to model the unisex She by Shereé items. Because remember, Cairo's a model. He did some modeling for Cynthia. I believe it was for Cynthia. He did some modeling for someone back in the day. And Shereé, she tells that she's hired a designer who's going to help her basically get her thoughts out of her head and onto paper. So basically just getting the ball rolling. And someone on Twitter pointed out, it's like, it is episode 12, and this is really where we're at. Like, with the She by Shereé stuff, like, they're basically like, this seems like early season stuff. Like, she just hired a designer to kind of get the ideas on paper. Later on, we see her at a little fabric store, and it's like, okay, girl, like, let's, go already in, like, the B part of the season, But anyway, Shereé also says that this is do or die. She basically just can't keep talking about She by Shereé without doing it. And I immediately thought what Kandi said in the last episode about how She by Shereé is like the biggest business that's not a business. Basically the biggest brand that isn't a business yet. Because basically anyone who's a fan of the show has heard of it. There's that song that I don't know who it's by, but there's songs that go around on TikTok and stuff where they use a lyric that's like, summer, spring, September, like She by Shereé, like something like that. I know it's been was going on TikTok for a little bit. But yeah, so that's what Shereé's on right now. And then we go over to Kandi, and she's having a little get together for Ace's birthday. Nothing too crazy. It's just some family and Drew and Kenya with their kids. Basically just a reason for half the group to get together. And meanwhile, we have Sanya and Shereé. They're linking up with Marlo at La Archive. And so this is going to be like kind of a back and forth, essentially. Half the cast, Kandi, Kenya, and Drew, and the other half, Sanya, Shereé, and Marlo. They're just linking up and talking right now, like simultaneously. With the Marlo group, she's talking and talking about how she found out that Michael, I think he's the older nephew. He's talking about how he misses being over at Marlo's, but William, who's the younger one, I believe, he's just straight chilling. He's just playing Roblox all day. He's just kind of kicking it, essentially, allegedly. And Marlo, she's like, oh, the boys aren't getting structure over at Crystal's house. And Kent's like, well, bitch, what did you expect? It's like, Crystal, from the looks of it, it seems like she has a full-time job at a dental office because she's wearing her uniform when she met up with Marlo earlier this season. So she has a job, and she has, I believe, 4 kids, she said. Or, I think 4 kids. She has 4 kids of her own. Now she has these 2 older ones who, frankly, don't need as much attention as the 4 younger ones. You know what I mean? Like, they're 12 and, like, 14. Like, they're not gonna fucking, like, you know what I mean? They can basically, can be more independent than the other four, you know? You know what I mean? And yeah, so it's just like, because again, I feel like Marlo, she acts like she like sent them to boot camp or something. Like, no, you sent them to your overworked sister's house that's already packed. And so it's like, I don't know what Marlo expected. I don't know what she, you know what I mean? It's like, whatever, girl. But she says she's kind of worried that William in particular, that he's kind of looking at it as a vacation. And she's like, oh no. So that's what she's on right now. And then we kind of merge over to the other group, and it's mainly Todd, Kenya, and Drew. They're discussing the trespasser, the trespasser situation from a few episodes ago, and to kind of talk about security and stuff. And I believe it was Drew and Kenya. They say, oh, up in Roswell is like another part of Fulton County, essentially. But Kandi's like, they talk about safer areas, and Kandi's like, no, I like being here, because Kandi's more like in Atlanta. She's like, I like being here, I like being in the midst of the city and stuff, closer to the businesses. And Kenya makes a comment like, oh yeah, and you're closer to the airport, so you can fly up to New York to, for your Broadway show, like, kind of segueing to that conversation. And then Kandi kind of reveals that the play, Thoughts of a Colored Man, it was shut down because of Omicron. And remember, it did really well when it was first going on. There were like lots of good reviews and stuff. I believe Kandi's assistant or someone working on the play said that like some reviewer called it the most important play of our current like era. But yeah, and it was notably Broadway's first all-black production. So yeah, and it got shut out because of Omicron, and Kandi gets very emotional talking about it in confessional.
To me, I am a Black woman. You know, I come from a single-parent home. I did not have money handed to me, but people just look at me as everything that I've done. It's like, oh, everything just happens for her. It doesn't just happen. These are things that I have to work for, but my whole life I feel like I want to make it happen because I know it's not just for me. It was more of trying to even the playing field for African Americans who are creators and want to be on Broadway.
So then both groups begin discussing what happened at Blue Ridge. Shereé and Sanya, they're on Team Marlo. They're like, you know, I don't know why Kenya went. She wasn't going to participate, yada, yada, yada. And Marlo's butthurt because she feels as though Kandi sided with Kenya. When that wasn't even the case. Like, Kandi was very much, like, in the middle. I guess it's like, I don't know, because Kandi was kind of talking to Kenya a little bit. Like Kandi wasn't pissed at Kenya or anything, you know what I mean? But Marlo's upset with Kandi because of the Kenya situation. It's like, Marlo, like I said, Marlo's a big-ass, mean crybaby. That's the thing. Like, she's a crybaby, but she's a mean one. You know, that's the problem. And the other group, they're kind of talking about it a bit differently. Kenya says that the trip was just very bipolar. And the girls are just laughing over Drew's bone antic. They're like, girl, why the fuck did you bring that bone? Like, and Drew's like, oh, like, just laughing about that real quickly. And then kind of make one last final switch to the other group. And Sanya basically switched to discussing the Jamaica trip being a couples thing. Because she's like, yeah, I want everyone to have to bring someone. Like, and it's kind of weird because, like, half the group is single. Kenya, Shereé, and Marlo are all single. And, Sanya was like, oh yeah, everyone has to bring someone, whether it's a man, a friend, like, bring someone on the trip with you. And she's also planning to have a little pre-Jamaica party as well to kind of kick it off, because next episode we're in Jamaica, so she's kind of like, oh, let's have a little pre-Jamaica get-together towards the end of the episode. Then Sanya, since she's decided that it's a mandatory couples trip, essentially, she decides to call Kenya to let her know what's up. And Sanya, she kind of gets repetitive and shit. She kind of says twice, like, I just want to be clear that this is a couples trip and you have to bring someone. Like, she says it like that, like, 2 times in, like, 30 seconds, it seems. And Kenya, she's like, Shereé told us it's a couples trip. Like, so Kenya feels as though Sanya is just, like, badgering her about it and being condescending. And Kenya straight up hangs the fuck up. She's like, girl, I ain't got time for this, bye. So she hangs up on Sanya.
I'd love to invite all of you to come to my house on Saturday. Just kind of like a prelude to our Jamaica trip. I really want this to be a couples trip. I want you to bring somebody.
She told us it was a couples trip.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to be clear that the Jamaica trip is a couples trip because I felt like,
Bye.
you know, you...
Girl, I'm tired of this. Bye, girl.
Girl, listen. What the...
Kenya, Kandi, and Drew, Kenya's group, they essentially feel like Sanya is being intentionally shady because they're like, girl, Kenya just, like, she's in the middle of a divorce with Mark, you know? And yeah, Kenya feels like Sanya's being insensitive, not being a good friend. And meanwhile, Sanya's like, what the fuck? And she and Marlo are talking shit. Shereé's not really talking shit at this moment, but Shereé's kind of like, oh, shit. But Marlo's like, oh, no, you know. Marlo said something about, like, oh, Kenya hung up because she ain't got a man to bring. And it's like, bitch, you don't got a man to bring either. You know what I mean? It's like, why are you acting? It's like, Marlo, you of all people should shut up. I have a quick moment with Marlo. She's sitting down with a Christian psychologist who Shereé recommended. It's basically a regular therapist who kind of uses prayer as well for people who, like, are open to that. This could be probably really helpful for certain people, I'd imagine. So they kind of joined in prayer for a little bit, and then Marlo gets emotional and begins opening up about the situation with her nephew. She kind of tells him the whole story about how one day, like 3 years ago, Michael called her and was like, "Oh, Auntie, can you come pick us up?" And she did, and that turned into like 2.5, 3 years, you know? And she's kind of talking about how she's struggling to provide structure. She's like, she straight up says, I never wanted to have kids because I didn't want to be like my mom. Like, I didn't want to raise children the way my mom raised me. And that's all Marlo knows. And she says that she was kind of slipping into those habits of yelling and shit. And that's why she decided to kick them out. She's like, I can't deal with this shit. So she kind of really opens up more about that. And the therapist gives her some good advice. You know, he says that she has to put work in to make them not feel not abandoned. You know, because he's like, he does mention that, but he also tells Marlo, you know, like, don't beat yourself up. You know, he tells her that she has to give herself credit as well, because even though she's struggling and she's not perfect, she is the best option for these kids to be at this moment. You know what I mean? They don't really have anyone else to run to. So, so he's kind of giving her that advice. And he's encouraging Marlo to change, but he's also giving her flowers. You know what I mean? He's like, you have to make some changes. You can't go back to the same old stuff. You have to have boundaries. Parenting isn't always going to be like we're buddy-buddy, you know, stuff like that. But he's also like, but you have to recognize the work that you have done, the progress that you have made, and the life that you've given these boys. So that was a pretty good sit down all in all, you know what I mean? So we get to probably the best scene of the episode. It's Kandi and Todd. They're getting ready to sit down with their older children, with Riley and Kaela. And Riley, she's like 19, and she's Kandi's daughter, as you know. And Kayla's like 26, I believe, and she's Todd's daughter. And Kandi and Todd is talking about getting their estate set up, their trust. And, well, basically talking about their assets and stuff. We see that Todd really doesn't have anything else to offer aside from the New Jersey condo. Like, it's because they're talking about, like, what each person brought, like, what they brought to a relationship, essentially. And so Kandi, of course, you know, she had her escape stuff, she had her songwriting, she had already some businesses going on, all this shit going on. And Todd, it's like New Jersey condo, and it's so shady. Even Kandi acknowledged it on Twitter. She's like, that was so shady of production.
We both had properties and different things before we got married, and then we got things that we've accumulated since we've been married. And, you know, we will be having to figure out how those things get divided.
So, like, think about the Jersey crib. I will leave that to Kaela. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's fair.
And so then they kind of get down to the core of the issue. Todd says that he doesn't want the kids to get, like, lump sums once they get there. It's like, once Todd and Kandi die, they're like, oh, we don't want you guys to get these lump sums, to get all this fucking money. Because the way Todd puts it is like, I don't want you guys to get, like, $5 million, and then he makes some bad investments and wind up with $130,000. And so he'd rather basically break it up into increments over time. And Riley's like, well, I wouldn't really want that, because what if I need to make investments right away? Like, why can't I have the money and make my own decisions with it? That's where Riley's at. And so kind of different perspectives of it. And then Riley kind of brings up the subject of how Todd and Kandi have different approaches to money and basically helping the kids out. Riley, because Kandi pays for, like, Riley's apartment in New York City, and Todd basically makes Kaela, like, fend for herself in New York City, essentially. Both girls are in New York, and you can totally, someone on Twitter pointed out, like, you can totally tell Kandi, like, slides Kaela money on the low and shit, you know, but yeah, Todd's very, like, strict about that. He's like, oh, self-sufficiency, blah, blah, blah. Which I think is so funny, because, yeah, Todd does well for himself. You know, he did well for himself before the show. But, you know, damn well the bulk of their estate is from Kandi. You know what I mean? And it's like, bro, you lucked out. Like, he did well already. You know what I mean? He was in production, he's in TV and stuff, he had shit going. But it's like, let's not act like you guys are, like, 50-50. You know what I mean? Let's not play that game, you know? And, yeah, and Riley Ship says that, like, she feels like, basically, they say that if one of them were to, like, hypothetically, if Kandi were to pass away, Riley feels as though Todd wouldn't help her out in the same way that Kandi helps her out. And yeah, and Kandi kind of sides with the girl. She kind of says that, like, she straight up says that she doesn't trust Todd to make all the decisions, to make them as she would make them. And Todd gets all butthurt, and he's like, oh, these kids are disrespectful and ungrateful kids. And, you know, I get it, because, like, it's almost, I know a lot of relationships like that, you know what I mean? Or it's like one person's more, like, more liberal with the spending and the money and helping the kids out. One person's more like, like, a little tight with the purse strings. But it's like, I feel like that's kind of how it has to be to a certain extent, you know what I mean? Have that balance going on, you know, but yeah, it's really important with subjects like this, with the trust. And I really feel like, later on, it gets resolved and shit, but, like, right now, it's very, like, Kandi's basically like, okay, I don't think that you would take care of the girls the same way I would take care of them. You know what I mean? And Todd disagrees with that, but Riley's just like, you know, don't fuck with my money, old man. Like, but yeah, I like that, because remember, these girls are getting older. Riley's still young, she's like 19, but they're adults now, and we're talking about money here, you know what I mean? Don't fuck with that. But yeah, and then we have a quick scene with Shereé fabric shopping, as mentioned earlier. She tells an employee that she's revamping a line. I'm like, bitch, to revamp something has to be pre-existing. You're not revamping a line. You are following through with a line for the first time, you know? And she says she wants to have a huge show, and she doesn't want to just put anything out. She wants to be grand and big, and she says she goes on about having a visual print line, basically a dick imprint on her joggers. And it's like, is that it? It's like, is that what you're most excited about? I don't know. I feel like that whole scene made Shereé look kind of like a joke almost. It's like, girl, just get the shit out. You know what I mean? Like, let's fuck the gimmicks, fuck this shit. It's like, just get it out, you know?
A visual print line.
Like they like,
Like a visual print line.
a visual print line.
So they like to give you a little peek, a little sneak.
A little sneak peek.
I mean, hey, both men and women like to see a little something dangling every now and then. So I'm gonna give the people what they want.
So they go back with Todd and Kandi. It's a whole other day. Todd is still butthurt after the sit down. He says the kids are very entitled and they didn't make him feel too good.
Still feeling good after meeting with our daughters?
Oh, I don't with them.
What? Why would you say that?
So yeah, Todd was all butthurt and shit. And but Todd does admit that he probably would handle the estate differently than Kandi would, which is understandable. You know, we all have our different, we all have our differences, you know? And, but he says, you know, so just get that shit in writing, tell me how you want to do it, and I'll make sure it goes. You know what I mean? Basically, like, I would probably do things differently. So to ensure that I don't fuck it up, make sure you state how you want it to go, you know? But yeah, that was a good little resolve. Kandi mentions that, like, oh, you know, we're opposites, but, you know, we have different approaches to things, but, you know, we're still a unit, you know? Segueing to another aspect of the conversation, Kandi reveals that she got an offer to produce another Broadway show. But she's nervous about it because the first one got shut down because of COVID. But again, it did really well in terms of numbers and sales. But COVID, you know, Omicron, shit hit the fan. And so Kandi's like, well, I'm afraid of it because, like, what if the second one doesn't do well? And you know what I mean? But Todd encourages her to go for it, you know? He's like, and so what if the second one doesn't do well? Go for a third one, like, and impress people by saying, like, yeah, the first show got shut down, but I'm back. I'm here to do a part two, you know, a second one. And so yeah, Todd really encourages to go for it. It's a really cute scene. Again, they have different approaches, different reactions to things, but they complement each other well. So I thought it was really cute to see. So now Sanya, she's setting up for the pre-Jamaican party, and this party is also a surprise birthday party for Shereé, because Sanya found out that it was Shereé's birthday or something, or Shereé's birthday was a few days ago or some shit. So Sanya's like, all right, we're gonna make it a surprise birthday party as well. She's trying to kiss Shereé's ass. The girls start arriving. Marlo's visibly annoyed with Kandi, because remember, Marlo's butthurt with Kandi because she feels like Kandi sided with Kenya. Nothing really happens in this episode, but at the end of the episode, a little preview for next week, we see that Marlo's just stewing right now. She's stewing and being angry at Kandi. It's gonna blow up next episode, you know? And then Drew comes in. She's shit-talking how far Sanya lives.
I was like, am I still in Georgia? Girl. I should have booked a flight, a helicopter, a train. She is not in Atlanta. You do know that, right?
And Drew also walks in, like, kind of ready to gun for Shereé almost over Fatum's behavior at Blue Ridge. Seems like Drew's a little butthurt as well. I think she feels like Shereé was trying to set her up. I think that's what Drew's coming from. And then Kenny gets there. She and Marlo, they're playing nice, but it is very icy. Sanya then kind of shows Kenny around her house. None of the girls have been to Sanya's house yet. She just settled in. And she wants to get Kenya's input on some of the decor and some of the paint and shit like that. But she also wants to have a little sit down with her, and she wants to address Kenya hanging up on her. So, they kind of talk about the house, then nothing too remarkable. And then Sanya brings up Kenya hanging up on her, and Kenya's like, yes, I hung up on you because she feels like Sanya was being off-putting with, and she was being condescending. She was like, remember, Kenya, you little single bitch, you're gonna need to bring a man for this fucking couple's trip, So yeah, and then Sanya, she apologized for making Kenya feel that way, and yeah, it's a really quick little sit down, really wasn't anything remarkable, to be honest. It was a quick little address it and then stop. Then Shereé, she arrives last, as she should. It's her surprise party, and she's blown away. So Shereé's really happy, and she's like, oh, yay, but she also, people are starting to point out some little party mishaps on Sanya's. It's her first season, let's be nice. The music isn't working, the music wasn't set up by the time Shereé got there, so they had to sing happy birthday, themselves. The photo booth isn't working. The catered food was allegedly dry, and there's no bartender. Just all this shit, and the girls are like, girl, what? Drew says it's giving Party City / kids party. She's like, is this Deuce's party? But yeah, it's her first season, give her a chance, I mean? I'm not a Sanya fan, as we know, but it's let's let her ease in. But yeah, it was definitely nothing remarkable. But, it was a quick little thing, and it wasn't just Shereé's birthday party. It was a little, mainly pre-Jamaica little get-together. The girls are chilling, eating some food, and then Drew throwing a bone at Blue Ridge comes up, and Drew, she's like, oh, I stay ready, I stay ready. And Shereé, she's like, oh, you weren't ready that day. You weren't ready that day. So Shereé's basically Shereé is still Team Fatum. Even though Fatum is allegedly not going to be showing her face on screen that much anymore, it means that Shereé is still going to ride for her girl. Drew then accuses Shereé of throwing rocks and hiding her hands. Again, basically, setting her up. So Shereé, I think what Drew didn't really verbalize it a whole lot, but I think what Drew's getting at is, she feels like Shereé brought Fatum with the express purpose of fucking with Drew. So that was Shereé, but Shereé can keep her hands clean, Shereé's kind of taken aback, and Drew, she tells her shit for bringing Fatum around her. She's like, you brought your friend around, blah, blah, blah. And Shereé, she's like, tomatoes, I'm throwing tomatoes at you, bitch. Tomato. And it's the shit like that, I kind of like it because it instantly, dates it, you know what I mean? Because, my little meme calendar came out. I was like, when was that shit, a trend? You know what I mean? It was funny.
What I'm saying to you is you brought this person around.
Tomato. I'm throwing tomatoes at you, bitch.
What are you saying? You're not making any sense.
Throwing tomatoes at this bitch because she whack.
They're funny.
I'm throwing them at you. You deserve them. All the tomatoes.
And then Shereé and Drew going back and forth over, literally just fighting over Fatum. And it's she isn't even at this fucking party. It's she's not even going to show up anymore. They're literally fighting about Fatum. Drew says that Shereé, she's like, oh, you probably don't remember how it went down. Maybe because you're getting older, you're not remembering anymore. Yeah, and just girl, whatever. And all the girls are like, oh, you better wish you look like Shereé. You better wish you look like me when you're old. And Marlo says something funny in the confessional.
Old and cold. You better hope you look like this when you get my age.
Drew is pretty, but she better hope at Shereé's age she still looks good. Because Shereé looks damn amazing to be 60. It's 52. Oh, Shereé gonna curse me out, Lord Jesus.
There's a bit more banter, nothing too crazy. Drew, she says she knows where she stands with Shereé. She's like, I get it, girl, I see you, I get it, And yeah, it's that. And then Kandi, trying to lighten the mood, it seems. She's like, Drew, I want you to sing Happy Birthday to Shereé. And then Drew refuses that at first, but she ends up pulling through, and Shereé takes this as an apology. Then the final scene is Sanya. She's kind of staying with the girl. She kind assembles them for like a little family meeting, if you will. She's going over the Jamaica rules. She wants everyone to have water-friendly hair. She wants there to be no standoffs, like no bringing beef, essentially. So, damn well Marlo's gonna fail that one. No props at Drew. And Sanya, she's like, oh, despite what you may believe, weed is not legal in Jamaica. No weed, no going to jail. And Kandi's like, weed's not legal in Jamaica since when? Like, since never. And I'm like, you never heard that, Kandi? Like, I fucking heard of that shit. I remember, like, because people bring it up, like, oh, weed's illegal in Jamaica, right? And everyone's like, what, really? Because the whole fucking stereotype. The last thing is Sanya asked everyone to be on their best behavior because it's a work trip, technically. They're going through IFIT. IFIT's fronting the bill. Sanya has some obligations to do, So yeah, and it's like, okay, girl, fingers crossed. But yeah, so the next episode, they're going to Jamaica. This episode was all right. Nothing too remarkable. It was definitely, sometimes you'll have like a string of really good episodes and kind of like, like that was this week. You know what I mean? But it was nonetheless really good. We got to see Riley. I feel like it was a really good conversation that we saw between Kandi, Todd, and the girls. Just really having a difficult conversation about important matters. You know what I mean? I like that they were talking about death, doing death planning. Not like talking about death, but like death planning, you know what I mean? Like, kind of shit's important, you know what I mean? Like, make sure you know what your parents, what you're like, okay, if, all right, when they die, what do they want to happen? You know what I mean? Like, to have a plan in motion, you know what I mean? Setting up the estate and shit, that was cool, but, and of course, Shereé, tomatoes, bitch. But anyways, that's it for this episode. Again, rate, comment, subscribe. It wasn't that good, but it was okay. But next episode, they're going to Jamaica, so damn what's going to pop off. All right. Thank you again. Thanks for watching. Bye.